good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Augie of the Blago Blabber podcast. I'd like to welcome everyone back to yet another episode. I think I did one last Monday as well. Kind of feels right to get the weekend off, or start off the week, I should say, with a podcast. Actually, it might have been last Sunday. Can't remember exactly, but maybe a routine that I'm going to kind of have going forward, where I do at least one podcast on like a Sunday or a Monday, because there usually is a lot to talk about in the sports world. Coming off a weekend, this podcast is going to be a little bit different than what I usually do. I'm coming up to the 1 year anniversary, so to say, of since I started my YouTube channel. So I started on November 5th of last year, so 2020. Produced my first video. November 24th was kind of like an introductory, just what I'm going to talk about, and November 25th was my first video where I kind of looked at something a little bit more in depth, I should say. It just was an introductory piece. I kind of got into the sport content. So when I first started, so why I started this, I used to have a sports blog for about 10 years. Started around 2011 and officially closed it, I believe it was November 2021, so not too long ago. 4, 5, 6 months ago, whatever the number is there. You could do the math. I just didn't have enough. I don't want to say I didn't have enough time for it, but I just kind of lost, I guess, the love of blogging and writing. I'll be the first to say that my writing wasn't that great. I'm not someone who, uses big words. And the more I read different blogs from different people, I was like kind of envious. They know exactly how to use the big words, and they use, their opening sentence is something related to a movie or a song. And I'm not really a movies type of guy. My friends could tell you that. There's so many big movies that I've never seen, so it just wouldn't make sense for me to start off like that. And I think that's one of the, interestingly enough, that was one of the things that I really struggled on, is how do I open up this blog piece. There was times where I was like, oh, this is great, this is exactly how I'm going to start this, but those were far and few between. But anyways, to kind of cut the blog talk short, so to say, it was a Blago Blabber website, and like I said, I closed it down in April of 2021. And, I kind of thought to myself, I still love sports, I studied sports in college. Like, how can I continue doing this? Is there any way I can continue doing this now that the blog is gone? And the podcast was the first thing that went through my mind. And the second thing was a YouTube video. A lot of people, and actually had my friend Igor asked me when I started doing this, he's like, man, can you like watch yourself? Like, can you rewatch yourself doing the videos, or can you listen to your voice? I'm like, man, not really. But if I cut the videos, I try to do it as quickly as I can, because I just don't want to listen to my own voice. And I know a lot of people are in that same boat where you don't want to listen to your voice. And I'm like, I just try to cut it as quickly as I can and listen, for the 10, 15 second snippet that I'm about to cut. And I just kind of use that. But I don't like listening to my voice. I mean, I don't mind it, but I prefer not to listen to myself speak. And I know a lot of people have that same issue, but, I started, doing the YouTube stuff. When I started, I said to myself, I'm going to do this my way. I know that at some point I am going to go on YouTube, and I'm going to look up every possible way to make my, YouTube page stick out, to get views, to get as many followers as I can, or subscribers, I should say. That's the metric that's used, I guess. But ultimately, I just wanted to do my way. I wanted to talk about the two sports that I love, which is football and basketball. And then if I have time, I throw in a little football. I've done some football pieces on the YouTube channel, and, kind of anything else. Before I go on, to everyone who did contribute to my blog, I'm forever thankful. Thank you for taking the time doing it. My friend Matt did college football for a very long time. I had my friend Demeter who did UFC for a while. I had Curtis who did UFC. Demeter did UFC as well. Yeah, I said that. My friend Matt did some hockey stuff early on. Who else? I did basketball and football or soccer for a very long, well, obviously for the 10 years. My friend Zach did a lot of football pieces as well, mostly Ronaldo related. Coming back from a Portuguese background and being one of his biggest fans, he did some of that. But yeah, I had my friend Alan did some of the betting lines for college or for NFL. So yeah, if I forgot you, I apologize, but there was a lot of people that did stuff for me. There was upwards of probably 6 or 7, close to 8 or close to 10. Sorry, people who did contribute. So thank you for that. I am grateful. Whenever someone could take the time off to contribute to my blog as they did. But yeah, like I said, when I first started, I said I'm going to do this my way. If you ask me when I started doing the YouTube page, like what my goals were, it's just basically to put my opinions out there. What I think about certain situations, what I think about trades. I've done quite a bit of those. And just stuff like that. Like, I just want to get my opinion out there. If you kind of ask me, well, like, what do you, in terms of views, like, what would you be satisfied with? Like, honestly, I don't know. I kind of said anything over like 100 views would be crazy. And I still think that. Like, anytime I put out a video that's close to 100 views, I always, kind of get excited. But yeah, that's kind of like what I set out for. And I, like I said at the beginning, I knew I was going to be YouTubing stuff and seeing how to make, the page pop and how to make it better and stuff like that. Because really, I'm still an amateur. Like, I haven't even been doing this for a year. But if it pops, it pops. If it doesn't, that's fine too. As long as my, opinion is out there, I'm happy with that. So I'm someone, and I think a lot of people can relate. And again, I'm going to use my friend Igor as an example. So Igor did a fantasy football. He had a fantasy football blog about EPL, and he was the same way. He said when he started, he wanted to learn everything that he could possibly learn in a 10-minute span, and I'm the exact same way. Like, I want to learn, I want to watch 30 YouTube videos that are 30 minutes each in 10 minutes, which is not possible. It's just not possible. So, it's very important to kind of take your time with what you do. When I started, thumbnails, I just said, well, if it's going to take, and I said this before I started, if it's going to take a lot of editing and, doing thumbnails and stuff like that, I'm not with that, because that's a little bit almost too much work for me. So I said I wasn't going to do that. Well, I lied, because firstly, thumbnails are very easy to do. I use Canva, which I think a lot of people use anyways. A very simple site, very easy to do. Not to brag or anything, but I have people say, what, that's like a really nice thumbnail. I'm like, and I tell people straight up, if you knew how easy it was, I mean, you wouldn't even think it takes 5-10 minutes to do. It's very, very easy. Especially when the site pretty much provides you with everything, and everything that you need is essentially free. Anything that if you want to go above and beyond, you could pay. I don't know what Canva is per month or per year, but I'm not running any promo for Canva, by the way. Whatever it is per month or per year, it's probably worth it, because I assume it's a lot of people who are very serious about what they do, and people who make hundred thousands of dollars a month through YouTube. Or they probably use different sites, I don't know, but I know Canva works for me, so that's what I use for my thumbnails. And then the one thing I learned quickly was, you should probably pick a niche and focus on that. Well, if you remember, I said when I first started this YouTube video, I just wanted to make it, pop in my own way. If I'm talking about 30 different sports and 30 different clubs, then that's what it's going to be. I'm not going to pick a niche. And that's honestly what it was like in the first probably 3 or 4 months. I was kind of all over the place. I did a lot of soccer. I did a lot of basketball. I talked about, different basketball players. I did trade recaps. I talk about players who could get traded. I did podcasts about random teams. I did all-star games. I did Arsenal football matches recaps. I did, Red Star signings and then players they sold, match previews, recaps. And that's where I find out that my niche really is. So focusing on a club like Red Star Belgrade was probably the best thing I did on this vlog, so to say. I guess the vlog is the YouTube channel, and then the podcast is the actual podcast, which I have on Anchor and other podcast platforms. But I realized that was a niche without at the time really realizing it. And I remember the first video that I did. I'm trying to go back now. It was around the time Red Star had faced, I believe it was Hoffenheim in the Europa League of last year. And that's when it kind of started to pop. The views started coming in. I used to get anywhere from 10 to 15 views on my videos. And then I kind of started focusing unintentionally on, Red Star Belgrade. So the first video that kind of was out there in terms of views was Red Star drawing AC Milan in the Europa League round of 32. So that had 80 views. So that at that time, that was crazy. I remember watching the numbers skyrocket, and I use that in quotes because 80 really isn't a lot of views, but that was the first kind of video that popped for me. So that was exciting at that time, because I was like, holy cow, like, when I was at 50, I was like, holy, like how much is this going to go up? Like, how much is this going to grow? And right now it's at 80, so it's not that crazy. But I would say the first really big video that popped was my review of the 2020-2021 Venezia kit. So that's currently at 609 views. So that's one of my better videos to date. And that was in the same month as the Red Star video about drawing AC Milan. So that was a very good month for me, so to say. And that was crazy to me because I saw the kit that had come out and I thought it was beautiful. And I said, you know what? This seems like a cool thing to do. Like, I'm gonna do a review of this kit. I'm gonna talk about it for 6 minutes, put it out there. If it does well, it does well. So at this point, after I had done the Red Star drawing AC Milan video, I kind of said, I'm gonna throw out a bunch of videos here in the next 2 or 3 weeks and kind of see what works. So I did that Red Star video, AC Milan. I did the James Hard situation in Houston. At that time, he was still there. Then I did the Venezia FC kit. I was still at this time doing the Arsenal kind of vlogs after the matches. And then I started doing possible transfers for Arsenal. So I was just kind of seeing everything that I could put out there, like kind of what works for me. And like I said, that Venezia recap, the recap of the kit did very well for me. So it's at 609 views. And it's so funny because every time Venezia does something well, or if they've won, I get 6 or 7 views in a day. So they were in Serie B last season. So once they qualified for the playoff in the Serie B, it was like 3-4 views a day for maybe like a week. And then they advanced to the semifinals of the playoff. And then, it was another 6 or 7 views for the next week. And then they got to the finals. So it was another like 6-7 views per week. And then they got relegated to Serie A, and it was like, I remember it was like 50 views in the next, I would say 3 or 4 weeks. So the video constantly kept on getting views because I guess every time people would Google or people would YouTube Venezia, my video was one of the top videos that popped up. And the kit is actually very popular. So if you do look up the Venezia kit 2020-21, it's beautiful. I still have it. I wear it. One of my favorite kits of all time. And as time went on, I did my first video, apart from my introductory to the YouTube platform, is Dallas Mavericks are flying under the radar. So it was after their draft in 2020. So they drafted the Terry. I forget his name right now. But they drafted him. He's a straight up shooter. He's like a Steph Curry type of shooter. Maybe not as good as Steph Curry, but he's a very good shooter. And I forget who else they took in the second round. And I just did, a video on that, and that has 142 views to this day. So that's 10 months later. And I actually got a lot of comments on it from Dallas fans and just general fans around the NBA. So that was pretty cool. That was my second video. I'm like, wow, like if this is how it's gonna go, this is really cool. So after a while, I continued doing the Red Star match previews and match recaps, and to this day, those really do get a lot of views for me. That's what works for me. I guess that's, if you ask me for a niche, I'm still kind of all over the place, but Red Star is what I focus on mostly in my vlogs. So my vlog is a little bit different than the podcast, because podcasts, I'm kind of all over the place. I talk about football in general. I talk about basketball, Raptors content, Red Star content, Arsenal content. So I'm still kind of all over the place in terms of the podcast, and that kind of works for me. But now I'm starting to realize, if you wanna do well in the YouTube stratosphere, you probably should pick one kind of niche and do that. Which I'm still iffy about. I still want to be able to do a lot of the different things that I've done so far. And I do Serbia match recaps. I mentioned in my last podcast, I think I'm only going to do recaps. I'm not going to do previews. So after the match, I'll do a recap of whoever they played. And those do well as well, around 50, 60 views. Some get, 200. I've done like player extensions for Arsenal, Balogun once he extended, when Jamal Murray was out for the entire season, I did a preview of that, or what to expect from Denver. And yeah, just like I said, all over the place. But I don't plan on stopping that. Like whatever views I get from that is just kind of bonus. Like I said, I always want my kind of thoughts and opinions to be out there. So if it gets 3 views, I really don't care. And it's cool when you get a lot of views, and by a lot of views, I mean like 300-400, whatever. But if it doesn't get views, then that's fine too. It's just, again, I'm putting what I think out there, and if people like it, they do. If they don't, that's cool too. But I'm currently working on one video that's kind of set to reach a big mark, so to say, in my YouTube career. I'm not going to say anything because, I don't want to jinx it, but you'll probably hear about it when I do reach it. And I'm kind of waiting for some views on that video as well. I'm not going to mention the video neither, but yeah, like I said, mostly what I focus on now is just Red Star as a whole. Players that they sell, players that they bring in, what they can expect from those players. And yeah, I'm still gonna try to do some more football stuff this season, just in general. Basketball trades and teams struggling, maybe players struggling. I'm gonna do some of that stuff this year as well. But I'm sort of, like I said, I still plan on doing all of that stuff and not just focusing on one thing. But if I do find that, at some point that I really should stick to a niche and I should really pick one thing, then that just might be what I do, in the future, so to say. But as of right now, I'm just kind of bouncing all over the place. And I did, the Luxembourg and Serbia match recap for the World Cup qualifiers, and that's at 214 views. So that's, that was posted 2 days ago. Obviously, the more followers you have, the better. What a lot of people with a lot of followers will tell you is, that tags really aren't really that important. Well, and people are on the fence about it. There's people who think that tags do work. There's people who think that tags do not work. I'm somewhere, in the middle, I guess, so to say, because if they didn't work, then I'm a strong believer that they wouldn't be there if they didn't work. So there's a reason why tags are there, and I think that they do work. And until YouTube takes them down, I'm going to keep using them, obviously. And one thing I'll say is to people, if you are making YouTube videos, use I think it's 500 characters that you can use. Use all 500 characters. Whatever it is that you're talking about, you can fill out the 500 characters or as close as you can, to generate the views that you need. I have a friend that I grew up, Mike, and Mike, he doesn't know I'm going to talk about him on the podcast, but Mike does a lot of tennis work on YouTube. So Mike has, and Mike, don't sue me because I'm talking about you. Love you, man. Mike has, so I looked at the numbers before I came on here. So he has 4,000 followers on YouTube. His videos have 570,000 views. Most popular video is close to 100,000 views, so 98K. What Mike does is it's all tennis based. He does racket reviews, which are very cool. Like most of the time, I have no idea what the heck he's talking about, but I still watch every video. I like every video. I'm subscribed to his page. So if you are like a tennis player, he does a racket review. He has action shots where he is using the racket. He does his pros and cons of the racket, and then he grades the racket compared to all the other rackets that he's reviewed in the, I guess, 2 or 3 years that he's been doing this. Probably 2 years, 2.5. So it's very cool video. He does like shoe reviews as well. He doesn't do as many of those, but there are some shoe reviews. Obviously, again, tennis shoes. I believe there's action shots of him, in the tennis shoes as well. Pros and cons of the shoes, and then kind of grades them as well. And then my favorite video of his is rackets that are used by the top tennis players. So what they used before, what they use now, and yeah, he just kind of talks about that, and it's very well done. Unlike me, he actually edits his stuff. It's all very good, pristine. There's intros. Like I said, there's pros and cons to everything. He goes into depth about the tennis rackets that he uses. If you have any questions, you could leave your questions in the comments on his page or on his videos, and he gets back to you in a timely manner. And that's something I always notice. I never used to be someone who would go on a certain video and then read the comments and to see if that person of that particular channel replies. But now I do that more and more. And I think it's important for YouTubers and just fans in general to kind of keep everyone satisfied. So I had some questions about, the kit that I just talked about. I forget what the question was on my YouTube channel, and I answered it to the best of my abilities. And whenever I get, comments or questions or concerns, I always answer those. The one thing that I get, I don't want to say all the time, but a question that I have gotten, or a statement, or whatever you want to call it, is, I should do my videos in Serbian. I hate the way I speak in Serbian. I feel like I speak in an accent. I've been told that I don't really have an accent. I think I do. I think maybe it's just in my head, but there's sometimes there's words that I forget in English, let alone Serbian. So I don't want to stumble all over those and waste people's time and make me look like an idiot. But there's a reason why I don't do them in Serbian as of right now. Maybe at some point I will kind of grow out of it, and I'll just say to myself, just do it. Do one video at least and see how it works out, and then we'll see what happens going forward. But just to round things off, approaching close to a month, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't looked at videos, how to improve my YouTube channel. There's a click-through rate as well that I've been kind of, I watched a video today, actually on click-through rate and what it really means. It's basically how many times your thumbnail pops up and how many times, people watch your videos compared to those thumbnails. So that's a pretty cool tool as well. And I think the one thing that I have learned the most Although I don't know if there's really any concrete evidence of this, going forward, but it's very important to have a thumbnail. So yeah, okay, my videos with thumbnails, do anywhere from 100 to, I would say, 100 to 250, 300 views. But who's to say if I didn't use a thumbnail, that those videos still wouldn't get those same views? Who's to say that, the tags that I'm using aren't working when they really are? Like, maybe, I shouldn't say maybe people are finding me through those tags that I use, but there's, when you go into the YouTube Studio app, it tells you how people find your page. So there's a section that tells you how people ended up getting to your video. And bear with me as I just look here. So it's under the Reach tab, and it's top YouTube search terms. So, for example, for the last 7 days, the top YouTube search term has been Luxembourg versus Serbia. So that's 19%. Serbia, Luxembourg, 16%. Serbia versus Luxembourg, 9%. Luxembourg, Serbia, so it's mostly terms for that Serbia and Luxembourg match recap, because that was, the video that I put out last, and I put it out right after the match had ended. So the recap was right after the match had ended. A pro tip to anyone who wants to kind of do match recaps, if that's your thing, do a recap as soon as the match is over, because the quicker you get it out, the more views it's going to generate right away. In 3 days, don't expect to be getting the same amount of views as you did in the first day. You're going to generate, I would say I generated probably 70-80% of my views in the first, I would say, 6 or 7 hours of putting it out. And that was put out on, I think the match was on Saturday. So now it's Monday night. So, have your YouTube pictures, I forget what they're called right now, thumbnails. Have your YouTube thumbnails ready, before the match. What I like to do is have my thumbnail ready, and I like to have my YouTube tags ready before or right after the match is done. So I do it the day of the match, or I might do it tonight. Serbia plays Azerbaijan tomorrow. Wow, that's tomorrow. So I should probably I'm going to do my YouTube thumbnail tonight, and then I'm going to do probably the tags tonight as well. I'll see, depending on how long it takes to upload this current episode up, but that's what I plan on doing. So yeah, that's just how I do it. Everyone has their own, theory of how they do things, and we're all comfortable with something different, but that's just how I do it. One thing I hate is doing something the last minute. So if I have my YouTube video ready to upload, and then I'm making my thumbnail the last minute, that drives me crazy. And I have done that before, just because it sometimes slips your mind. The thumbnail, actually, I usually have ready a day before, or at least 6 or 7 hours before the match. The YouTube tags I sometimes do last minute. And I usually have a format where I just kind of copy and paste and switch out the names of the countries or whatever the case may be. So I do that, and that helps a lot. So that just kind of, to wrap up this video, I'm kind of all over the place still, a year in. Like I said, if I find that focusing on one particular niche is gonna, better my channel, I might do that. But for now, I just kind of want to do my own thing, and see what works. Like I said, I'm not too crazy about the amount of views I get or anything like that, but it's really cool when you do get to a certain milestone. Like 500 views was crazy for me. I was like, wow, like a lot of people have taken the time to, watch this video, whether it's for 10 seconds, whether it's for 3 minutes, whatever the case may have been. And thank you to everyone who has done that. The longer people watch my videos for, and the likes that I get, they go a long way in kind of moving those videos up in the search engine and where they appear. So I thank them for that. In terms of the podcast that I've done, for those people who do listen, Yusuf comes on with me. He's been on 2 podcasts already. We've had, I think, probably 2 that just haven't worked out, that we were recording, and whether the sound wasn't good or whatever the case may have been. I'd like to thank him as well for coming through. He's helped me get some views on my podcast as well, and taking time out of your day to come and talk sports as always. I really appreciate that from anyone who does it. I've said it before. If anyone out there listening wants to come on the podcast and talk about sports, let me know. We'll work out a time where we can, works for the both of us, and we could talk whatever basketball. I'll try my best to keep up in football and obviously soccer. So, just to wrap up this podcast, it's just, about what I've done in the year since I've started my YouTube channel and how far I've come. And sometimes I go back and look at the videos and the thumbnails that I've done, from the first ones to now, and it's like day and night. And it's something that a lot of YouTube creators say as well. Like, you'll see the difference evolving in your thumbnails. Like, from when you first start to now, you'll see a big time difference. So if you're out there and, you're listening to this and you only get 2 or 3 views, keep pounding away, keep putting out stuff. The more you put out, the more you are likely to achieve success. Remember to use the tags. I know people say that, tags working might be a myth. It's there for a reason. I truly believe that tags do work to a certain extent. I'm not saying, it's all in the tags, but I think that they do work to a certain extent. So keep plugging at it, keep working hard, and your content will get views eventually. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to the podcast, and see you some other time.